Since ancient times, people have always tended to search for and decode historical information. They are mysteries of the past, making us curious about how people lived and developed on Earth in the past. Where the works and artifacts found came from. Why did people in the past create them? On Earth in the past, there existed many peoples. Many empires were formed and then collapsed. Each civilization has its own outstanding characteristics. Among them, there is a tribe famous for being fierce robbers, moving dragon-headed boats across the ocean to plunder everywhere. Those are the Vikings, a tribe from the Scandinavian peninsula, including Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Finland, in ancient times from the 8th to the 11th century. During their living, the Vikings left their mark on human history through their talent, will, and characteristic Scandinavian civilization. The warlike tribe is therefore also the subject and inspiration in many works of art and cinema. However, many things about the Viking tribe are mistransmitted and misleading. So today, let's find out and answer the amazing facts that few people know about the Vikings. Vikings did not wear horned helmets. In today's cinema, we can easily see movies about Vikings wearing warrior helmets with fierce-looking horns. However, this is incorrect. In the past, Viking warriors also wore helmets when fighting, but did not attach their horns at all. Costume designer Carl Emil Doppler was the one who incorporated horned helmets into his extravagant costume designs for the 1876 performance of Wagner's classic Norse tale Der Ring des Nibelungen. The added horn is a combination of Germanic and Viking culture, and stunning hat designs are available, and it's easy to see why they've quickly become iconic. The opera was so influential that Vikings wearing horned helmets became the new norm, despite the fact that archaeological records show that the helmets had no horns. The days of the week were called by the Vikings after the gods. Norse mythology is the religious belief of the Vikings since ancient times. Gods are powerful, magical people who can create and control the world. The culture of god worship is indispensable in the daily life of Vikings. They believe that the gods will protect them from difficulties, and they learn the will of the gods to overcome challenges in life. Therefore, in daily life, the names of the gods are also given to each day of the week. They named the days of the week after gods such as God Tyr for Tuesday, God Odin for Wednesday, God of Thunder, Thor for Thursday, and Goddess Frigg for Friday. They may do so to remember the gods every day, as well as easily have stories to pass down to their descendants to never forget. The Vikings' physique was not as tall as described. In media images or movies about Vikings, they are often portrayed as people with giant bodies, tall human beings, fierce faces, using axes to fight, and wearing helmets with horns on head. But in fact, archaeological documents show that Vikings were often thin and only about 1.7 meters tall due to harsh living environments, limited food sources, and having to go through expeditions. The description of their large, giant physiques is intended to greatly exaggerate their fear, some appearance, and fighting ability. Perhaps the looting and invasion, as well as the fierce personality of the Vikings, have contributed to making it easier for us to imagine tall people who bully weaker people. The Viking tribe believed in an afterlife. Just like the Valhalla story of the gods that the Vikings worshipped, they also believed in an afterlife. The gods, after sacrificing heroically on the battlefield, will go to Valhalla, where the gods can rest and relax with endless parties and stories about the exploits and heroism of the warriors. Soldiers, on the contrary, if they commit unforgivable sins, bad people will be banished to hell, where they will be damned and unable to be reborn. The Vikings also believed the same. They believed that after death they would have an afterlife, depending on how they lived in the present. If they are good people, brave warriors, maybe they will also go to Valhalla, be reincarnated in the next life and have a new life. And if they live full of sin and mistakes, after death, they will have to go to hell, where souls are imprisoned and cannot escape. Viking hair. Nowadays, when we go to Iceland and Scandinavia, we can easily see people with eye-catching blonde hair. It is said that people in this area have yellow hair from birth. and when they grow up, it turns brown, and because they want to keep their childhood memories, they dye their hair yellow. However, this could also be a genetic sign because this place was once the homeland of the Vikings, a people who also favored blonde hair. The Vikings loved and wanted to have blonde hair. Historians have found evidence that the Vikings had red hair, and that both men and women used a strong alkaline soap to bleach their hair to their favorite color. Maybe the yellow color symbolizes something special in their culture, like the image of Thor's yellow lightning bolts, or the color of the treasures they plundered during their raids and invasions. Their territory. In addition, Vikings also had long bangs and often wore braids. Vikings wore braids to keep their hair long and cut it short at the back. The Vikings loved cleanliness. When mentioning the Vikings, most people will remember fierce images, fierce battles, and big guys who looked very dusty and not clean at all. But the truth may not be like that. Vikings are not unkempt but take self-care very seriously. They use cleaning tools, comb their hair daily, keep their beards and hair neat, and prefer light-colored clothes. As a people who moved a lot and all over the world, it was easy to understand that the Vikings were clean, because they often met and interacted with other peoples for many different purposes. It could be to exchange goods, trade, or even live together. Excavations at sites where Vikings lived have found a number of objects such as razors, combs, and tweezers made from ivory and bone. On average, Vikings bathed once a week, more than the average European of their time. The Vikings buried their dead in boats. The Vikings relied heavily on their ships. They are also especially skilled in using them to land and withdraw troops to conduct short-term raids. However, their boats were not only used for exploration. In early times, Vikings often practiced cremation, and people who held positions or were respected would be taken to sea to be cremated along with their boats. However, later, burial became more popular. People with high positions will be laid to rest with their boats in a graveyard. It is these burial sites that have made it possible for us to access the Viking ships that have been preserved to this day. According to Norse beliefs, the great Viking warriors needed a ship to get to Valhalla after death. Therefore, Vikings were often buried on boats with necessary items such as food, weapons, treasure, and slaves. They would float the boat along the river or out to sea, then shoot an arrow lit at the tip into the boat for cremation. This custom is seen a lot in cinematographic works today. The Vikings discovered America before Columbus. Columbus discovered the New World. This common sense is surely familiar to everyone. From 1492 to 1502, with the support of the Spanish royal family, Columbus crossed the Atlantic Ocean to America 4 times, becoming the first navigator to discover the New World, and this also made him become one of the world's greatest navigators. However, in reality, Columbus was not the first person to discover the American continent. According to research by historians, long before Columbus, people from the Old World discovered America through sea voyages. It is only for technical reasons that these trips have not been conclusively maintained and recorded. On the European continent, there has long been a legend that there is a new continent located on the other side of the boundless sea to the west of this continent. The first Europeans to discover the American continent were the Vikings, who arrived in North America 500 years before Columbus, according to research led by American archaeologist Sarah Parcak. The Vikings early on traveled on ships across the oceans to plunder and invade the lands they set foot on. America is no exception. Perhaps they came and settled here for a period of time. These facts about the Vikings answered my questions and provided some additional knowledge for me. Thank you for listening. If you still know any facts about the Vikings, please comment below to let me know.